Just as the video title suggests, this is a massive undertaking, and it is one of the worst areas of my skills. That's why I have a friend here to help. We are taking on the entire vehicle's wiring harnesses, all of them. Multiple harnesses. As you can see, it is a very expensive process. Not only labor, but parts are rather expensive too. So I want to show you guys what it takes to rewire an entire vehicle full, like motorsport, at least the highest level people like us could feasibly do. I mean, Koenigsegg is almost a step above, but there's still a lot of the same components. Enjoy the next couple minutes of seeing what's involved, how much your brain will melt. You have some tissues ready because there's blood gonna come out of your ears, nose, and mouth, but you will enjoy seeing what it takes to do this right. First, we'll start with all of the wiring components. Connectors and wires make up the vast majority of this. We'll cover what they connect to in a second. An end result like this, which isn't even actually an end result, takes quite a bit of work and of course a lot of parts. As you've seen in my previous wiring video, wire starts out as one of the most expensive parts. This is Tefsel wiring, and Tefsel comes in two different thicknesses of jackets, as I've learned. So these two wires are actually the exact same thickness of wire. The blue ones just happen to have thicker coating, and you have a purpose for that, but the thinner ones mean that you can really pack even more wires into your harness. So all of that is the core, wires. But you start getting even more expensive when you do these connectors. These are called Autosport connectors, and as you can see right here, 800 bucks. So when you open a drawer like this, that's when you know that I am very serious about doing this. These are the connector kits, this is how they come, and in fact, you have to buy them separately. Each of these halves have to lock into place, and then you get the satisfying click when they're together. You do not buy them together because some come with flanges, some are free hanging. You can have pins and sockets. You'll see a P and S in their naming. This is a socket, traditionally considered female socket, pin, little penises sticking out here. The crazy part is this can come as a pin or socket, this can come as a pin socket, so it gets really complex, but you get the idea. Each connector has a lot of components, including the pins and sockets themselves. So you're like, all right, okay, cool, Rob, I'm with you so far. Take it one step further, it gets really expensive right here. These are the tools necessary to crimp those pins and sockets. If you're a beginner to all the wiring stuff, you're just looking at, you'll see a lot of these things. These are called positioners. They're almost 100 bucks a piece. The tool's like 400 bucks, 500 bucks, I don't remember. And what all these little things do right here, they plug in, they pop in, and they just position the height. That's it. They don't do anything related to specifically to crimping. They just simply hold the pin or socket in a certain height, and then you crimp in the right spot. It's kind of like the triangle. You have to have this type of wiring. You can't use cheap wire because the jacket has to be the right size for sealing. You have to use the Autosport connector to get the benefit of the wire. And then finally, you have to have the tools custom for the Autosport pins. That triangle right there is instantly where you start having to spend a lot of money. So even as a beginner, if you're like, man, I want to get into it, the tooling, the base is that like take a bite out of it, and then it gets less expensive per connector as you go. As you'd expect, this wire is more expensive than traditional wire, but it actually starts to become relatively affordable when you get into volumes like this. This is a 1,000-foot roll, and it ends up being close to 14 cents a foot. If you go 250 or 500, you're paying closer to 20 to almost 30 cents a foot. End up almost 50 cents a foot if you're gonna do really short runs. So you can see how it gets super expensive for the same amount of work. If you're gonna plan to do this, you also are going to have to budget to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to get a couple 500-foot rolls or 1,000-foot rolls and really save that money per harness. But if you're only going to do one harness overall, it's almost not even worth it. You can get all of this at a couple different places. I use both Pro Wire and Race Spec. There's all this wire. Well, you don't see any of the wire. You don't see a single wire in the car when it's done properly. And that's where, you've heard it from my other video, DR25. I have fought using this for the longest time because I thought it was overpriced, and that's what somebody who has no idea what they're talking about says. This stuff is amazing. I would use it to protect everything other than wiring too. It's beefy, it doesn't get brittle as easily as like the 3M stuff I use. It is a phenomenal way of protecting the wire. And the way I like to think of it is you are trying to seal this whole thing from the connector to the other connector or whatever you're doing on each end. You're trying to seal it. Basically, waterproof is basically the quickest way of saying that. So you're using all of this protectant, but then you're also gluing it, epoxy resin, to the connector. And you've got boots, all this stuff. You're making an outer layer, a sheath, so the wires are never being pulled on, they're never being subjected to oils, fuels, water. You say you're gonna do some salt flat racing, or you live in Michigan and you have salt flat racing every day during the winter, you want to make sure if you hose that car down that the wires don't get exposed or the connectors don't get exposed. Because what's really wild about salt water particularly, if you get a connector exposed to it, that can actually travel inside the wire, not just the harness, the wire itself. It can leach all the way down, corrode wires, and then you start getting a lot of problems with your wiring overall. That's, in a nutshell, everything that's involved. When you see something this clean in this shop, you know it wasn't me who did it. The only thing I can take credit for is ordering the right parts. Kevin did a phenomenal job, even just for something as simple as this right here. What you'll see is these little back shells right here. This is actually billet aluminum, and that turns this connector into something that can have a boot and be way more sealed from the elements. What he's doing is taking what I was visioning and then just making it actually really good. And I'm not even trying to kiss his ass. It's legitimately, I had this vision for like the clusterfuck being right in the center of the car, which is what you think. Like, hey, shortest runs to everything is right in the center, but that creates a clusterfuck. And so he's got this better idea of moving it down so that way it can then go out to the car from down there. You don't need everything right in the center. I mean, literally the name Nexus stands for the ECU is the center. But let's kind of move things all away from each other and simplify what we're dealing with. It's going to get crazier from this and this whole weekend and this whole next week. Wiring is just getting done. I am doing something that has always worked for all of my harnesses, and that is I know what these are supposed to be, but I'm letting the facts tell me what they are. So I'm testing end to end and saying, okay, what pin is this? And then what wire is that going to? And does it only go to that wire? We humans like to have confirmation bias. We want the answer to be what we hope it is or think it is. It's very difficult to separate that. So when you don't know what answer it's supposed to be, you can't screw up the answers. I'm factually checking this, and it's passing with flying colors. And I'll compare it to what I was intending to be, but you know, sometimes you grab the wrong wire, you don't know. And this is facts right here. He's jumping in to check this out.
What I'm gonna do is, here's gonna be the central point.
Okay.
The two autosports are gonna go like around here, more or less. Okay. Remember, it's around this plate where I planned it. And then going back here is where we're gonna go to the engine for the engine harness, the injector harness, E-gate harness, and everything. Okay. And you boxing it off right there actually made it perfect, because it actually makes it like mint.
I've been doing it for a few weeks, you know.
What do you think?
Yeah, that's
Like, obviously this is gonna be like at an angle depending on how he has it, and then the
probably
PMU is gonna be right up
like
here.
That angle is probably be exactly what I do.
Yeah, because you see, if we try to put the union right here, like where it all merged, it's just gonna get like too cluttered right there, especially with coming downwards and coming backwards. The idea was the FT Spark was gonna be like around here, right?
Mm-hmm. Up top. In this kind
Oh,
of
up top?
Yep, yep.
All right, so even better, because I was gonna have like the Autosport breakout, like around this vicinity or this vicinity.
Yep, that's all.
So that way, that goes to the power outputs for the Fueltech CDIs, and then we run the other Autosport to the Firewall area for the coils.
I don't even recognize my own car. In about 5 seconds, with a bit of spit and duct tape and construction paper, you see a totally different car emerging, and it's nice because we can make quick decisions because we already have experience with the things that didn't work. Now, it is awesome what he's doing because I had a slightly different vision, but this is even cleaner. I had everything going to the center, and he's kind of distributing that a little bit, and perfect timing for Isaiah to have that because that wasn't there a second ago. So we're working on the ECU Masters PDM, and the two are going to sit kind of like this in the car. He's already got plans for having this go to here, this, go up at an angle a little bit to go over that, and then here and on this side, so closer to the center of the car, that's where everything else for this will break off to the rear and stay up front. So this is already going to be very, very compact. We're working on the dash at the exact same time. The whole Firewall setup. It's a different car. It's a completely different car. Super exciting. So you guys are going to enjoy the next couple of steps where all of a sudden magically everything is going to look like it's meant to be. This is exciting to see so much progress all at once. There's such a high of having all these people doing this. With that, the wiring is moving so quickly. It's because of all the good documentation and communication between me and Kevin going out perfectly. And of course, because he's an expert, he has gotten 5 sets of wires all coming off the ECU, and then he's got 2 coming off of the power distribution module. Technically, the ECU has another power distribution module, so there's all 7 sets of wire stalks come down to the kind of hip area of the passenger and then go every which way. He's got the main runs all done. He's got all the splits done for that. It's going pretty quick. I kind of went from the other side. He's coming from this side, and you know, there's an old song, you start walking your way, I'll start walking mine. We'll meet in the middle of this old Georgia vine. So I've begun terminating the Terminator. You don't see the boots on there because the boots are big enough for walking. That's just what they're going to do. When I go to put these on later, I feel like you put a ring on it. And so the boot can shrink on and seal like that. Now, these are the square ones. And then these little macaroni elbows are the 90-degree ones. And so these are going to be straight. These are the water in and out of the engine, very front of the motor. They're going to come from the intake manifold down, right? But this one, on the other hand, is my air temp, and my air temp is going to actually bend on an angle, but we don't know which angle until we get up there. This is the air pressure, which is also the top map air pressure. It already has a 90-degree boot on it. Beginning to get ready to do my first major set of Autosport connectors. This is very intimidating for me, partially because Kevin is in the back of the corner and he can actually see me while I'm working. He can go, And so the mood is not right for me because it's got that dark and very sinister feeling. I gotta start doing this. I gotta wear my big boy pants and start putting this together. But look at how small. I lost it. That's exactly, yeah, there we are.
You said small.
So I'm gonna show you something slightly smaller than that. Look at those. Those are pins. And so I need to get my crimpers back to crimp these pins onto from the turbo speed. Look at how small this is. Like, it doesn't even look like this thing is a functional thing. It looks like a model of, like a toy model of like a real one. But this, we're gonna have to put this to where it's close to this right there, so the boot gets all up in there and seals it all together. So we have to trim off the excess there. And then really, what you can see is this little wire sticking out with a little nib, little baby boop. So on the turbo, you're gonna see the inlet here, and you're gonna see no wires going into it because above that there's gonna be a little mount bracket, and you good to go. I have taken this tool from Kevin's table, and I put the correct positioner onto it. Should plop in there, and it sits right where it's meant to be. And then you can even see the light. You barely see it at all. It's in there. And so what I have to do, I'm gonna pop that back out, is make sure I get the wire just the right length. Something maybe a little bit less example, but where you can see that it's not hitting the jacket. I'll take a little bit of the metal down, and then we will crimp. There we go. So that is on there, and you can still see a little bit of space difference between the white, and there's just a little bit of proof that yes, this pin is all the way bottomed out. So you can do it this way too. Make sure this thing's all the way open. We're actually gonna take this, put this down on it, get my hand on the way, and so you can still see this visual inspection in there, and then that little bit of crimp. That's it. And so it wasn't even hard to push on, and that is not going anywhere. That is actually straight up crimped on there. So hopefully I made that the right length. I've got those four all kind of sitting in their right spots and all that. That one's gross. All this is gross. Very disappointed with this, but it's super functional. I mess up the length on that. I make these service loops actual full service loops. They're not pushed in all the way, so let me push this part in all of the way. I thought these wires would be going way deeper into this connector. It's too late to fix anything or make it shorter, and actually kind of expensive too. Making sure that every single one's pushed in as far as they go. I felt them all click, but you never know. The good news is because of this excess, turn a negative into a positive, making these a little bit more useful, even getting them to fit inside of there.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I'm actually really happy with that. Making the service loop a full circle of the excess wire actually solves two problems. One is that you don't have to get super accurate with the length, because the service loop actually pulls up whatever length you want. It's a very big benefit, but it's also make it quicker. You don't have to get it super exact. Look at the boot will hold right here, and then as the boots shrink, they come out another 10 centimeters, almost a half an inch. It'll boot on there and come back to about here. It looks good.
Yeah, but then I gotta straighten it out.
This is a nail-biting moment for Kevin because he's making sure that all the wires can fit. If there are a couple extra wires that bubble out of that third layer, that means those have to go into a fourth layer, and then he has to add tons of wasted wire, spare wire, filler wire, to get that fourth layer to be consistent and even all across it. He's pretty confident, but we'll see. It's just math. We'll see if it...
Well, the problem is I should have done the math.
You actually take the actual
Area of the wire versus the area of the actual loom, and you can actually determine how many wires are needed per layer.
Good?
I don't think so.
Damn.
Knock that wire underneath the other core.
Oh, like inside the... Oh,
Yeah, like in between the core.
yeah.
I didn't do it because it was tight, but oh. literally like around this branch right here.
Oh.
So this is everything that's going to the front, like on your beautiful firewall.
Damn, look at you.
Yeah, your firewall kind of came at a more perfect time.
I always come at the perfect time. But I've never seen someone go forward to go back. That's actually pretty sick.
Yeah, so that way it
this is
doesn't
gonna be
loop all the way around or stuff
See,
like that.
Damn.
Then for this
This is where it gets.
beauty,
Are those the power wires for the PDM over there?
yep,
Well,
Those big four.
the big lugs.
yeah, those will be powering the water pump and injectors. So they will.
So this at the angle and the way that the firewall is, because you know it goes downwards.
Yeah, yeah.
This is gonna meet up around here more or less.
Okay.
And then this is gonna go straight back to the rear chassis. And whatever is needed for the engine is gonna be in its own separate loom going underneath the firewall where you had like that lip underneath.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's gonna go down that way. From here, there's only 2 branches that have to follow this way, which is just for the pedals and for the ignition switch.
So when do you start wiring these things?
I don't. Rob does.
So you came and you did the fun part, now you want to leave?
Yeah, he did get us the fun part.
Well, the problem is I did come for the fun part, but he doesn't have enough shrink.
But he's got this part he'll do.
Yeah, because it'll offset the boot like one here, so especially around the hydro, at least it won't be like all
Yeah, all
cluttered by the
combined,
hydro. So that's actually better that I could bring it back a few inches. 3 more branches this way, and then like 2 more branches that way.
Was you going to connect 2 different harnesses pretty much?
Yeah. So it's a
I can't
lot.
wait till you finish that next week. He has ABS all the way back over here. Like, who put the ABS in the rear?
I know. We even thought of putting ABS in this car,
Yeah, ridiculous. He's out.
just like your hair right now.
Come on, man. He keeps that.
Wow.
As you see, the front section is pretty spot on. That's how it's gonna come straight down. This is our transition. We have our power for CDIs. Coming over here for our light switch. Here's gonna be our power steering, and then here's gonna be our front chassis. This is gonna be our ground stud all the way up front.
Excellent.
Then we come down here. This is where it's gonna meet right in the same location as the Nexus. For the wires, I gotta go back to the Nexus. Here's our transition.
Yep.
So here we have the stuff going to the rear chassis and to the ABS. And I still have to add the 3rd auto sport coming from the Nexus. So we were trying to locate an area where we could weld a bracket for the auto sports and figure out if I have to extend these, shorten these, or leave it like that. Obviously, we're gonna have 3 auto sports here, one for the ABS, depending on wherever you choose to put it in this car.
Yep.
The rear chassis power, and then the rear chassis data and sensors.
I'm gonna show you guys something cool. I don't think Rob understands how cool it is, but it's cool to me and it's cool to you guys. Stand right here, and then just look at the beauty.
But look at they can't see.
Oh man, you're acting
That's-
like Joel now.
I don't know what to do. This is how Joel would solve it. Leave that in there, Joel. There we go. That looks pretty good.
I think they're on a date.
They're talking to each other.
Fuck you.
Yeah, what are you in for?
Fuck you, Ezekiel.
Hey, what's your name?
Same amount of wires, just half the size.
I don't know. I don't see what's funny about that.
Well, it's also your competence versus mine, so.
I don't know what's so funny about that. Okay. Okay, well, hear me out. Hear me out.
No.
I don't know what I'm doing. At least I had like 5 lines left, and I had to do a whole row instead of like being like 1 extra wire, and I did a whole, you know, like this.
You mean like this one that has no filler wire?
Damn, that's good. You know what? I can defend this.
I know.
You're not using shielded for the drive-by wire.
I know.
That's okay. Okay, so there's a reason.
Your confidence versus mine.
Yeah, exactly. At least it's shielded where it matters. In all fairness, just like he's saying, I wired the 3-rotor where the drive-by-wire is not shielded. I did it on this one just because it's my baby, my dream car, and that's a much larger drive-by-wire motor, and I don't want that constantly torquing and possibly influencing anything else, any other core sensors. But that's being over the top, and thankfully this harness, we don't need to worry about that. On mine, I do. This is how small my wiring harness would have been here if I didn't shield the drive-by-wire.
No, it's not that.
And if Kevin did it. Those three are the engine,
So
injector.
the longest one will be your injector breakout for all 16 of your injectors.
Yep.
Just throw it over your back, you know. I don't know if you have that issue. Listen, it hurts my back every once in a while.
I have an innie. So.
Second one will be your main engine harness. It'll have your crank sensor, your alternator, it'll have your wideband, it'll have all your sensors, 0 volt and 5 volts. And then the last one will be controlling both
Dual
wastegates.
wastegate, yeah.
Yep. So we have our control for our motors. We also have our wastegate position and our wastegate temp sensors going right through this. So hopefully this will all tuck right underneath the firewall to our nice autosport plates, and then it'll be all nice and hidden away. So your disaster of the wiring can be seen on the other side.
That's right. Yep, so just so you guys know, the core is his, the rest of it's all mine.
Once the Bosch ABS unit is put in, just made it on this side, and now these 4 SPIs will be freed up on the ECU that you can use whatever you want.
Perfect. Well, we have sensor ground, and what else do we have coming to that plug?
Sensor ground,
Like a 12
sensor 0 volt, the sensor signals 8 volt,
Yep.
and can high, can low, that's going to communicate to the Nexus and to the PMU.
That's not bad, because 8 volt we can use to run other things too. Like,
Yeah.
there are other sensors that can use it.
Mostly like for position sensors. Well, since it's an SPI, it works great. I mean, realistically, SPIs, you could have on-off switches, you could have whatever. Yeah, frequency-based, switch-based.
Yeah.
And now everybody's blowing up my phone because you tagged me.
Kevin's been here all week, and I'm gonna replace all of his work with this right here. It's kind of a bummer that I'm just gonna take his stuff, throw it in the trash. But that's not actually the real sad thing. The sad thing right now is an end of an era for me. The first thing that I welded that wasn't just one piece, it was welding multiple pieces of metal together. It's finally time for it to go. It's too big. You guys have seen this over and over again. This is the engine stand for the 4-rotor. It's actually the whole drivetrain stand. I made it super wide, super everything, because I was afraid that when the engine turned on, it would fall over. It wasn't even close to the case. It's just too bulky for the shop. So we're gonna gut the wheels off of it. Isaiah can always make a 10 times better one, but yeah, all my mild steel.
I told Rob if I make him pants, they'll be better than his pants at home.
I'm not gonna watch this go into the trash though.
Bye! Have a beautiful time!
There's a very inspirational, deep song that this moment reminds me of, and it's close. It's by a band, a very, very influential in my life band called the Spice Girls. And let's just hit them with a little preview. It's when two become one. You know, I need some love like I never needed love before. Well, I want to make love to my harness. This is the computer harness. And we need to make that touch and make love to the PDM harness. So 2 become 1. So it's gonna get kind of crazy. Something like this, somewhere in here. Kev has the exacts. But what is nice is that the rest of this essentially goes back. All this goes forward. So this is gonna go over to the engine and wastegates and all that. A lot of this is going up to the center of the car or even to the front of the car. But then this wing has all the grounds and then all the power for the front of the car. So you can start to see that some of these are going to get close to each other. And then back here, they're going to combine into a knot right here and make the center of the car. Really wild seeing this. This is what it's going to look like before the final product. And when the final product's done, it's going to look insane to me. But it's so neat to see behind the scenes of a professional at work. I know I had a hard time. Dude, I almost broke on that one. I almost broke. That was tough. I was like, yeah. Oh, hey.
So I did this back in my heyday. That's why I'm just looking over here. I'll show you guys.
This is the hardest I thought you were getting.
Yeah. See? I mean,
that's a whole car, too.
what you're doing over there is child's play to compare what I did. I used to do wiring before I did welding, and this is just, you know.
There's a reason why you went back to welding.
Open your mouth.
My name's not Dahm.
Stop.
But yeah, what do you think of this?
Oh, this is normal. I don't like how this boot came out. Boot looks like fucking
I
Rob
guess
did it.
This one is thick as fuck too. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is a Hellerman 175. So that's basically how the boot's gonna shrink.
Damn.
Hopefully you can do it better. For that level.
Yeah, well,
I believe in you.
if we did a 185, it probably would have come out a little bit better. But
If you're missing
we
a
didn't
connector,
exist.
bro, we could just depin these, right? Are they hard to depin?
Well, these are different. These are mil spec. They're not auto sport.
They're not. Oh, so these are worse.
Yeah, it's not up to Rob's standards.
Oh wow.
Listen, this is That remind you of anybody? I love how this. I love how this is yellow print and this is all white print.
That's something I would do.
UK. I've done it before.
These are so small. These are so tiny.
Yeah.
What do you even ground to?
That's not for the ground.
That's not for a ground?
These are for solenoids. Why don't you just use this and repurpose it?
Actually,
Maybe it's meant for an IndyCar. I don't know.
I'm looking all nervous, Rob.
I'm not nervous. I'm fascinated because this is the biggest boot I've ever seen recovered on this thing, and it's really cool to watch somebody else who knows how they're doing it.
Just so you wait.
Roast your ass. You tried powering the pumps from the pump, not from the controller. The pump is brushless. It needs.
And I asked you that.
I said that. I said that. That's why I told you to stop.
No, you didn't.
Joel is right there.
You're the one that gave me the DPM.
We have it on camera.
this isn't done, once this recovers, we're gonna trim glue it so that we can fill in all the gaps. So like this one, we can fill it up in here, fill it up in here.
I was wondering, I couldn't see if you had filled them, potted them basically. But...
Yeah, we pot it, like first, obviously we fill it up as much as we can. Then after that, we try to continue even more.
Let's see this.
Plug it in. Okay. It's angled 90 degrees, so.
Nice and clean, and then this one hooks over that little bit. Oh, that is big lock. There we go.
Use your baby fingers.
Yeah.
Offset it to the side if you want it a bit.
You
or
get
you
choices.
can keep it right above. Just depends on the limitations of the dash.
This is epic. Okay, this is super exciting. I have an unfinished harness. Kev has busted his ass to get us some major progress in this amount of time. In fact, it's showcasing how much time you really have to dedicate to such a harness. This is a huge undertaking.
For anyone who's looking to
Thank you.
it takes too long.
Yeah. So let's see what you got.
We got a harness that doesn't work. Arching like that. So the Nexus will be right here if someone had actually gone ahead and finished the firewall. Oh, you're so thoughtful. These bad boys
That looks clean.
will be booted, thrown over here. Yada 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 yay. Following this line. Down here goes for all the engine goodies.
The ECU, which is the top one, the orange and white. And then we've got the injector harness, we've got CAN bus, and that allows us to throw the EGTs inside the engine bay. And then finally we've got the wastegates. All of that tucks right in underneath there and transfers out through the firewall.
Thanks for reminding me because I completely blanked out. That's all coming here. Gets a nice 90 for each of those transitions, so it goes hidden underneath the firewall. This all wraps out to different locations, however you want. This all comes and bends down here. And this is more flexible than Isaiah, as we found out. And then we come back here for the rear autosports, which should all mount up with this plate right here. We got our rear ABS, our power for the rear chassis, all our sensor inputs for everything that's going back there, and everything else that's gonna get controlled back there. What else do we got? Atessa.
We
got the air pump, we got the
tire
lights.
temp. We have all the power for all the coils up here. We've got all the switches. We've got all the power to the front of the car. It really is impressive how much where everything goes. This is a very exciting backdrop for me. It's quite a lot of progress made in a very short amount of time, but that is the core of the harness. This is the next step on my engine harness. And so I've waited a couple days. This sort of stuff takes time to get all of these correct boots. So this little boot's gonna go right there. And then most importantly was the one I custom ordered for the drive-by-wire. So the drive-by-wire I bent over to the side, and this boot I cut up a little bit and added some reinforcement for this plug, but then this boot will heat up and hopefully turn over like this, as tight as possible. We got a nice little service loop in there, so when you pull, it's not going to pull on the wires. And then we're just going to go each of these. These are kind of fun boots because they're already pre-molded. What I'm going to do differently, I'm not shooting up, but it almost looks like it, is I never get to use this level of precision. So what we're going to do, take the thing off like this, plop one of these epoxy mixers in together. Watch how cool that is. See the black side on there, the gray side, it's all mixing together, back and forth. Okay, this is definitely not the right way to do this. Yeah, kind of impressed. Okay. That is not what I guarantee that's not how it's supposed to do it. But we'll start with the drive-by-wire. And so the idea is that these boots get really unmanageable very quickly. What I want to do is just spritz some of this in a very consistent manner so there's no break in it all the way around the edge. So
very clean.
It forms a consistent, clean bond. And ultimately, waterproofing. This is the area you want to do it really right on. This little thing goes on the inside of the 90-degree boots. So we know that from experience. Put this under here. Make sure it's kind of facing in that area. We're gonna try and recover this part first, the outer edge. It's actually going very well. Okay, so once you've got it around the edges, now you can let the boot fold over. And so we want it to go something like this. This is one of the reasons for this thing. This is the one that's gonna be seen the most. So I'm not doing a good job, but I'm not doing a bad job. So it's pretty close. I do know that I want it just exactly at the 90. So it'll be coming up kind of from that angle. So this little thing's really nice for
Stuffing her.
Thanks, Joel.
What were you gonna say?
For the fine details of stuffing her. I just want visual confirmation that you can see this thing's sealed. You can actually use heat to cure this stuff. This is kind of a new frontier for me. This is actually a turbo speed sensor, so it's not super critical, but it'll give me a chance to learn for the next one. Now, these are all still very highly visible. God damn it. Fuck, this is fucked. So we're gonna leave that last one in there, at least the cliff notes of that, just because it shows you how much experience it takes for the last second to make your entire wiring harness look like you know what you're doing. Even though you could be like the best wiring logic engineer ever, it comes down to arts and crafts at the last second. And so that's the sad truth of this. Now these little boots are even easier because they're not a big deal. So this is the EMAP. That's probably something I would want. I'll twist the sensor because they're MPT port sensors. I'll twist it so the sensor is easy to get to. This is actually super useful for this small stuff. Damn it. Just that little fucking bit. So this one's a little bit more difficult because I'll put that part on and over. That's actually kind of done. You don't even have to heat shrink these. There's a lip in, so there we go. Okay, so that fucking sucks too. Okay, so I'm just showing you guys how, even something I've done a couple times, how kind of frustrating it is if this isn't your normal job. And of course, a lot of people are gonna say, well, that's why you leave it to a wiring guy. And yeah, I get that point too, but you're also paying for labor. If you got time, do it yourself. So same thing here. It's even harder with the camera here, honestly. Try to do it for both angles for myself and the audience. Okay, so fill up that side. Go over to this side, bend it open a little bit. Okay. That one's pretty thoroughly sealed. These two are going to be pretty easy. This is a new one for me, so I'm a little nervous about this one. Do that. Like I said, this is a new one for me. I'm pretty happy with this one so far. Yeah, that's how it's supposed to go. You always want to make sure it heats onto this side first, that way it hooks behind any ridge or whatever the case is over there. Otherwise, if you heat this side, it'll actually pull it backwards. It's so hot. You're going to end up burning your fingers 20 times getting this done. As soon as that hooks in, don't have to worry about anything else. Now we're going to try and slowly keep the rest of this. So it'll collapse on itself. It's a really wild looking thing. It just says, screw it, and oh, it's a mess. Here's a new clip before I ram this into my own eyes. People call my work Kev's. Kev couldn't even do shit like this.
I hope not.
There we go. Look at these guys. Sealed end to end. Beautifully. No stress. Very easy to do. It didn't have a single problem whatsoever.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. You better not flash back to... Fuck, this is fucked. The end result turned out really good. Very happy with this. All the stuff you guys are going to see at the top of the car is going to be like this. It's all sealed. I even added some extra juice that I had left over, so that way all of these things look good. and of course are functional. Some of my best work, I think. I'm getting there. The whole wiring harness for the engine is thin. It is done. It is finished. And so what we can do now is
Wrap it around your neck.
murder Joel with this. What I'm gonna do is let it dry a little bit more, and then choke Joel to death with it, inevitably. And then once it's gained the life of one soul, it should be certifiable for the car. Should be run just fine. God, you just will things into existence. You just dream that those things would happen, and then if you say it enough, it's like that secret existence.
Remember when you were saying your wiring harness is ruined? It's trash.
I
Were
did
you
say that.
speaking that into existence too?
It willed that into existence, and then I was just acknowledging its existence. Thankfully, we're past that, and it didn't cost me the several $100s that it was about to. It was really going to be bad. We're going to take the intake manifold and add little baby like brackets and stuff to make sure that this one, for example, is going to mount on the intake manifold like that. It'll be sitting there on a little bracket. And then each of these will all have their own little brackets on the engine. It'll actually look pretty pleasant. Quite quaint. I love Kev to death. He came in and saved my ass, but I will be very critical with this. This is the grossest thing ever. This looks worse than the hernia I have. Or the hemorrhoid I have. And trust me, it doesn't get better. Very functional, but this is not what I was expecting. So I get the point for it. I get the way that he can go very quick, clearly quicker than I can with the way he wired it. But I just want to address the elephant in the room and just say that wasn't my intention to have a big knot like that. But the cool part is that his design does many things that mine wasn't going to do. As much as I love to rag on my friends, when you have it go down and then back up like this, just like these wires are way longer. Like I want to say like 3 times longer than they needed to be, because there's wires that go down, hook around, and then come back. Why not just go straight across? Well, that does provide a lot of strain relief across the car. Of course, with this tape gone, it strains down here, but push it, it's not going to have any problems. So it does have some really good purpose there. The thing is that these were originally going to go all the way down to the big main knot, and he did actually reduce that. But there's a lot of extra wires. Like, you look at it, you can see it's looping back in that knot. And if I was going to be really specific or really obsessive with how I want to do this, I would have had all the data stuff loop at an earlier spot and then have everything else go to this one, break it up a little bit more. But again, that's 20/20 hindsight, and quite frankly, his harness looks like a piece of art. Short of the knot, it's very damn impressive. So I'm not knocking. I just want to point out the one thing that when you see stuff like this, you're like, how do they do it? It's opinion. And like I said, he added a lot of length to a lot of the harnesses, and that doesn't really affect a single thing. The length addition that we have right now isn't that much. It's certainly interesting. Now, like, for example, this chode right here, that's all the ABS. And so that's a really weird last second thing on his and my part to put this all the way in the back. It's going to work very well. I could go on forever about all this stuff, but we're making massive progress. He flies back in, today's Monday, he flies back in Wednesday and gets right back to it. And I will be ready for him with open arms. I'm probably putting ProWire's grandkids through college with how much I'm ordering from them. I love how quick you guys get all this stuff out, so I really appreciate that. But yeah, I'm ordering like crazy, and thanks to Kevin, I'm apparently Mr. Moneybag, which I'm not. I'm Mr. Debt. So we got this, which I used on Old Smoky, a big diesel truck, and so this is gonna go back by the battery. And this is really just a, hey, we're gonna work on the whole car, turn it on and off. It's just a very tactile, like, hey, you know for sure. It's just a switch. And I think it's rated to like 300 amps, 500 amps for 5 minutes, 300 continuous. You're not gonna have 300 amps go through this other than for the starter. Other than that, the alternator and the whole other system stays in that loop. I just wanted to have that so that we have choices for how to start the car. This is kind of interesting for me right here. These are the wires that I'm going to run from this and this. I usually use welding wire for this sort of run, and welding wire works beautiful, but I would recommend putting some sort of like heat shrink over it. This is actual like automotive grade wiring, and I don't know what to expect. No, it's soft, like, oh yeah, look at that. That's soft like welding wire. See, look at those strands. But it's got 2 layers, and the thing about the 2 layers is that if you nick it and you see the white layer, you know, hey, this wire is getting close to being compromised. That is very impressive. And of course, the sheathing of the coating is going to be way better for fuels, oils, and so on. So this is a 1 gauge here, 1/0. So this one, like the maximum amount of power to this guy. And so since this thing's all 200 amps potential peak, I did make sure that this wire is not going to overheat in the case that that thing goes to peak and stays there for a while. So I forget what 1 gauge is capable of, but it exceeds that unit. And then the same thing here, this is 1/0 gauge. So this is basically 0, first 0, because they just keep adding zeros to make it bigger. So you can see it is slightly larger, not really as noticeable as you'd think. And then that one will go into this. I'm gonna compare that to welding wire, and I can already tell the automotive one's actually even more flexible. So let's see that.
Whoa.
Yeah, and the welding wire is super flexible. Now the next thing would be the question of number of strands. At this point, to be honest, in my opinion, doesn't matter. So this is obsessive detail, but the number of strands definitely increases the amount of voltage that stays going through there instead of dropping. What blows my mind actually is that imagine you're the alternator to this car. The alternator in the ignore the battery. The battery just helps start the car and regulate power, but the alternator is sitting inside the engine. This ECU is capable of using up to about 130, 150 amps consistently, and really, there's 4 25 amps right there. There'll be the water pump, which is 30 some amps. There'll be the injectors, which will go up to 25 amps, and so on. So at full tilt, this thing could realistically be using almost 100 amps. And then this guy realistically be using up to 150. So you have 250 amps being used at peak, actual peak on the 4-rotor. These wires will be fine, but what I then got, this is new year, new me, all that wire needs to pass through. I don't even know who I am anymore. And so we're gonna pop this bad boy open. So this will sit inside the firewall, insulated right here. And then both of these wires will have a ring terminal, so they'll connect into there, connect into here. So it'll sit somewhere like this, and it'll go across and over on the car. And then the other side will have a 2 gauge wire. So I guess we could get away with more 1 gauge. I'm trying to do like worst case scenario and have the 2 gauge from the back side of this to the alternator. So the alternator is going to have a really fat wire, which all my cars always do. I always am very clear about that because I don't want voltage drop and I don't want to overheat the wire. This is a very expensive wire, by the way, just so you guys know. This is like $5 a foot, $6 a foot. So I didn't want to order it until I knew exactly how long, because say I ordered it slightly too short. Cool, I just fucked myself over. Kevin made a list of the rest of the connectors that we need, really to finish the core of the car. This right here, if you had to guess, just roughly guess how much money all this is. I think 900 bucks. I'm gonna add up all the expense, every single bit it cost to make this, and I can guarantee that this would be 15 grand in parts, and then add the labor. It's worth it. It's worth it. Put me in your prayers, please. You know, that money tree prayer thing that like grandparents all send around, like in their email, like send this money tree to 10 people and you'll get money. Put me in that. Put me in that, please. Things just keep heating up around here. We've got a lot of things going on at once, and it's really cool to see this sort of like multitasking going on. So I'm running around everywhere, but I wanted to show you guys what Kevin's been working on because this is really cool. This is what I originally intended him to come out for, and he ended up solving everything else. This is the rear harness. So what you see there, I'll walk over to his zone. This is approximately what I mentioned before, by the passenger's hip. Those two connectors are in the center of the car, and then one's power, one's sensors, so that it keeps those away from each other. And then they do combine, and what you're seeing here is behind the seat, You've got the all-wheel drive system, you've got the whole fuel system, you've got the rear tail lights, turn signals, all the wheel speed sensors, even an air pump for pneumatic shifting. All that back there, and then we'll have a master ground that's easy to visually inspect for all that. But those are all grounds for power things. Those aren't grounds that are really going to mess anything else up. You'll know when the system's having problems, and in fact, the ECU Master PM is so efficient or so intelligent that it can actually have alerts if there's something wrong, like if you're out of the range of the current amount of current you need to use. So really cool stuff there. Just to give you guys a quick overview of that, that's the whole rear harness. Let's go take a look at everything else, because Joel just set it up for the thumbnail in a previous video. This is the sort of progress we're at, and like I said, we're about $13,000 in materials alone. My cost, like actual cost. This is my injector harness you've seen me start with. I know that realm very well, so that's where I started. And then this is my engine harness that you saw me swearing up a storm finishing. That's my second most knowledgeable, I guess, area. And then this is Kevin's core harness, the clusterfuck as I've affectionately named it. And here you can see, they're all different on purpose. I think it's these two are the ones that you're connecting to the back of the car. The other ones, one of them is for power for the whole ABS system, the race ABS system. The other one, I forget what it's for. That's the whole point of documentation. So then what he'll be able to finish up next is, this is all the master grounds for the important stuff. So that'll be on the main stud. And then this one is all of the fans, water pump. This one's power steering if we go electric. If not, we've got a really nice power setup there. And then this is all inside the car for ignition, as well as front ABS sensors are, you know, separate as well. But you can see, it just is like, okay, well, this, you look at it just right here, it looks overwhelming as hell. But when you start like looking at it piece by piece, the way you go, like even look at this down here, this is the whole engine. So engine harness, ignition harness, little baby one for a CAN bus, because we're gonna put EGTs in the whole area there. And then this last one's for all of the electronic wastegates. We'll be running a couple of those. So really, we could test this right now. This is the moment of truth. So this and this is the first time this has been done. Right, like that. And then we're gonna get that nice satisfying click in a second. There. So technically, right now, the engine is connected to the ECU. That's the first moment that's happened. And so what's exciting for me, and so almost overwhelming, it's so exciting, is by about Sunday, so 2 days from now, we'll start powering these up with the power lines I showed you earlier, and then I can plug in one sensor at a time, just for safety. And hey, let's make sure that the wideband starts reading. Hey, let's make sure that the drive-by-wire actuates on startup. Hey, let's make sure the fuel pressure sensor's working. So on and so on. And so I can go through this whole engine harness and make that come alive. The downside to what I've done is, this is probably the biggest mistake I've made, and it's not even that. This is by far the biggest change in scope I've had. So I'm very proud of this being the worst thing, is that, so this is injectors. Well, do you notice they're the same connector? I originally was going to do this one like the Cosworth, where all the sensors and all the connectors would mount on the back of the motor. But then I realized it's gonna be easier to not have to make a pigtail to the firewall from there. That's what we're gonna have to do with this one. So the rest of them actually come off the engine and plug into the wall of the car. That'll be on the inside of the wall of the firewall, and we'll just be behind the motor and plug it in. So slight change that added about $250 for two connectors and boots and all that. That's the extent of the mistakes that we've made so far. This whole thing has gone this far because of good planning, good communication between Kevin and I. Everything's doing almost 100% of what we plan to do. So very, very pleased with what's going on right now.
See this lettering right here?
Yeah. Well, you don't want it to line up, because then your eyes are drawn.
Want to run that by me again? Wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, I like to spiral the lettering, just like a concentric twist of the wording.
That's not concentric, sir. That's ass backwards.
I bet it doesn't bother you that this is way too big for it.
Oh, yes, it did.
Oh, that bothers you? That's crazy.
Yeah, it also bothers me the way that you use fucking garden hose for a boot.
Yeah, but you know why, though? All of this is just all fucked up, so perfect boot. I'm joking.
I need the fucking tequila.
That's how we get wiring done around here.
Not the bathroom.
Amazing. This is all Rob's job that I gotta fix. It's goddamn. Rob, you sad man. Always gotta pick up after your messes.
Wow, why'd you do that? That looks like shit.
Because somebody decided not to use boots on this. I used to cheat with these. I used to put them in the heater for like a few minutes so they would soften up.
shit.
Oh yeah, these take forever. The 174s and the 185s.
Puta, se me está quemando el dedo.
Okay, this is super exciting. He is currently working on the 174 boot. That's the biggest boot that is easily accessible. You can get one size larger, but that's it. That is a massive $35, almost $40 boot just for heat shrinking it all together. So this is his elephantitis. This is the thing that grew way out of control, and like you're wondering what the hell is going on in those sweatpants. Nothing. This is a big moment for all of us to watch this collapse. This is like visual ASMR, VSMR, watching this thing collapse. So enjoy this next couple moments, because A, I'm not doing it. So if it sucks, it's not me.
Wait, what about that one wire?
Oh, you didn't run that.
Boy, I will burn you for your birthday.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. I'm glad you missed the honey.
You want to braid it so that way the adhesive actually has something, the resin has something to stick to. Unlike how Mr. Damadeus doesn't do.
I waited dry.
I braided a bit of the inside, we'll glue the outside in a bit.
This is the part I'm impressed by because God, this is a pain in the ass.
How would you know? You've never done it.
On a much smaller scale.
Oh, please.
I like read up on it a lot, dude. Like I've watched a lot of videos, so I'm basically like.
I think that's the one that
Does that like everybody that watches your YouTube thinks they're rotary experts?
That's why whenever I see my own videos come up on YouTube and I'm looking on how to do something, I know that guy doesn't know shit.
when you cover it up, it doesn't look as big.
That's what she said.
That's true. I'm watching the cover and I'm not as
Hideous as we thought it
Wait
was.
until it cools down. It's not the best.
It's way better than what I would do.
Oh, anything's better than what you would do.
I was giving you a compliment.
Honestly, I thought we were working with professionals. That turned out way better than I thought it was going to. Not because of him, but just because that's just a very unsightly part of the harness. But it is pretty sightly. Now, the funny thing is that's like a cocoon. That is a armor shell at this point. I need to make sure that, because that's in the center of the car, that we could basically have like 5 zip ties around it onto the, that could be a chassis component is basically what I'm getting to. It's pretty beefy. Enjoy as he continues doing the ones that I've been wanting to see from the beginning. This is super exciting. It's finally time to run the power for this car. Finally. And it's a little messy, everything's all full of dust, so ignore that for a second. But we've got the 2 connectors for the R5 Nexus, and they're kind of interesting how they're set up. It's got this little sleeve, but the sleeve itself isn't going to crimp it. Sometimes you have things that where the sleeve crimps it or whatever, but no, you're gonna have to crimp this barrel. We have just the tool for that. Okay. Here we are. So it's just really just physics. You're putting a lot of movement into a very small distance. We'll start with black 50. The little chart here tells you which one of these to put it into. And I think that one's too big. It's pretty close. That's the largest one they kind of recommend. And I can always crimp it harder, so no worries there. So it's either black 50 or pink 30. And so it's kind of neat because you just take these. Oh, there's pink 30. Pink 30. That'll definitely crimp it. I think we'll start with the black 50. I have 2 thicknesses of wires. It's gonna be confusing enough. We'll set the red ones aside for the moment, and we'll just stick to this one. There's 2 layers of the outer sheathing, and that tells you if it's really been nicked. You can see the white layer inside of it. We could also DR25 this And we may actually, I don't know, but we're gonna do this end first, and then when we go to do the other end, you can always slide it on. You can see the barrel goes way in there, and I kind of want to make sure that the wire goes in there for that solid contact. This will crimp it, but we'll make sure that there's a lot of wire touching a lot of crimp. This stuff's so like beefy, not really much of difficulty in getting this sheathing off. Beautiful. Look at that. It's like strands of strands too. So this should be a pretty tight fit to begin with. Right on point, so that way the crimp is within spec too. So then we have something new to me, which is this. These are very much a tight fit, and I actually like that because of the inherent nature of that sealing. But this sleeve makes it, this little rubber sleeve is a pain in the ass. We're gonna crimp this, put it up to the edge of these threads, and then that's gonna make it painful to get this over both this and this. So we'll just take it one step at a time though. What you wanna make sure is that the wire is not bent either, because it gets painful too. We'll get it closer to this edge, and we'll see. Was that enough crimping? I don't feel like that was. So I'm gonna go down one more. That felt way more appropriate. That's cool and all, but let's do the real test here. It's terrifying because it's trashed. It's like a $30 connector trashed if it falls off. That feels really good. You can feel the whole wire kind of tense up because all the strands now are being locked into place in one spot. And so even though they're still twisted, it's just the nature of crimping that many wires in one thing. So I feel very good about that. And then what we'll do is we'll slide this over. And this is the part that you guys are going to see, the very abridged version without all the profanity, because this part's going to suck. Right there, I'm going to have to try and slide this over this, and it'll wedge against that and create that nice clean seal. This has to get all the way up to here. So this is a pretty common practice if you're making your own spark plug wires. So we'll just use a little bit of this guy. WD-40 is not an oil like everybody thinks. It's more like a solvent. It doesn't lubricate like the general assumption is. Please.
Oh, that's better.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I think we're good from there. So the WD-40 did its job, but even then I still have to try and twist it. It's all plastic too, so I can't like wrench. True to the video, that last step took a couple minutes, and I learned a couple things in the process. Even though it's the same thing I was doing on camera, it kinked up the wire a little bit. And so the problem is that little rubber sleeve, you should probably put, well, in this case, I put WD-40 underneath the rubber sleeve as it contacted this, and it allowed it to have a little bit less friction while screwing this on. So it kind of locked into place under pressure, not friction. So this one locked under friction, and you can see the difference in mobility of the wire is dramatic. It's very distinct. You can kind of bend this one a little bit, but it kinks the wire if that olive contacts the outer surface of this. So I would use WD-40 on every layer inside of there and let compression do the work, not the friction. Not that I was trying to do that, it's just intense. So those two are done, and they turned out good. I had to wrench this one on. This one went on much easier. That's 2 out of 3. The third one is something similar. This one is a 1-gauge wire, and this one goes to the ECU master here. Now this connector, I think it's also the same type of connector. Yeah, they're all Amphenol. So the same company makes those, makes this one. But this one's actually what I would prefer, is we're gonna put the wire inside of here, crimp it, and then we'll put heat shrink with adhesive behind it and never have to think about this again. Okay, that might have been a little bit too much. Maybe. It's pretty deep in that one. Okay, maybe I'm a little deep. It flattens out at the very back of it. So you can kind of see, you don't want to push it too much because then it starts kinking the wires in here. There, not my finest work, but certainly very effective. That's reasonable. But now I need to make something lip onto this. We'll need a boot, an actual like boot. Now, the good news is I have a couple spares, and otherwise this would be a major showstopper. I have these boots that I bought in spares for the electrical system, 202D 211. Not saying that's a recommended size. I'm just saying that if you see what I'm doing and like it, it does have this lip that I want to hook onto there, and then it has a long ass extra tail that you can manipulate. Because I'm actually going to try and fill this area in like here with like the tape, mostly so that way the transition doesn't suck in. It looks more aesthetically pleasing because this is going to be sitting right on the dash. Now I haven't crimped this in either. Step one is we will crimp it. Okay, and then I like to do them twice because the two ends that crush down tend to stick out a little bit. So I put it in one rotation, one of the hexagon sides over, so that way it just crimps the crimp in. So now it's even. It's a little bit better, and nothing's sticking out to get caught on or cut and short out or that. I don't know. Very solidly in there. Nice. What we did is we cut a piece of the sheathing, split it open like that, and it'll give us that correct level of transition that won't look gross. And I was going to use that boot like I said a second ago, but then I realized I had this. This is really nice. This is SCL. They make two types. Raychem makes two types. SCL, and they make ATUM, ATUM. And ATUM is the cheaper one that you see. This is the really nice, clean, dark, high, like gloss almost epoxy inside of it. It's beautiful, honestly, it really is. But then now I have red, black, red, and that's not the most aesthetic. And then of course, Kevin from the table over there was like, why don't you put all this in DR25? And so he's getting inside the back of my head on how to spend more money. But right now we could just seal that and be done. Let's evaluate what he's asking me to do. So this piece is essentially gonna click in right there, like so. Run along this back wall, go right here. But it'll have probably a little bit of a kick like that. So that's not much. I mean, it's expensive. The real thick DR25 is expensive to me. I prefer not to. I was hoping to have this sit on the ground, like so. But then now I gotta worry. This is a good reason why maybe I do want to put the DR on there. This stuff has those double wall, but will take down the edges, but at the same time, just vibration over time. So I'll probably try and hug this outside corner to avoid contact with that connector.
I don't hate it.
No, I don't hate it either. The other two, this one's gonna go to this side of the ECU, and then this one will also be coming to this side, but then going across the front of it and plugging in. Something along those lines, which is pretty sick looking, to be honest. I think the color transition between this red and all this, I think we're gonna have to do the black SCL, which means it'll probably look better to have red, this ugly red, and then all black wire there. I just don't want somebody getting confused and connecting it to the ground, or you know what I mean, like that. It's very easy to visually see what's what.
You could be mad at me instead of being mad at yourself for being an idiot.
Yeah, I might burn the connector, but you know what? I'll have the right wires inside of it.
What does your keeps do for burnt hair?
Regrows it, hopefully. Oh yeah, man, you have all the fucking smart moves on this. I was like, what is he doing? And you already showed me that yesterday, and I thought it was cool.
Why didn't you put a Raychem boot on this with some DR?
We did, and then I like this more. It's better. I like this more. 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 It's not better.
So next time you ask me for help, I'm just gonna do fiberglass loom all over the 4-rotor harness.
As long as you put it next to like the ribbed loom, the plastic one too.
You always love the ribs. Just take it off real quick, and then you can practice it yourself.
Oh, you son of a bitch! Don't you do that? Don't you talk to me and my son ever again? We've got this wire already done up, and it's looking pretty good. Of course, we're gonna have to cut into this and backplate it, reinforce it, whatever. And that's why I've left it open-ended. But we have this one, and we have to be careful because there's gonna be a whole harness on these two, so we'll make sure that they're all the way against that wall. One of the reasons that I want that is I'm going to cut it to a slightly longer length, and then that leaves the access to possibly go to the alternator, because this is exactly the thickness of the wire I want to go to the alternator. As for this ground is what I want to go from the engine to here, because I got plans basically. Watch this, you can see how difficult these are. If Dream World, like real talk, it'd be so nice to just be able to go across like that. Because I don't trust Kev with a $4,000 ECU. We had Haltech commission the Kev safe one, the Fisher Price. As far as he knows, it's a real thing, but it's not. Made for Kevin Vitas. It actually was a real ECU at some point. All jokes aside, somebody else must have fried it, so it was just a dead one. That would solve all your problems. That's exactly why I gave him the dummy one. So it is finally time for Kev to seal all of these boots. This is gonna be that moment where he's got a couple of them done, but look at how insanely awesome this is gonna look. So I would not be able to do this step. And my favorite part is, now that I just added this flange to this 4-pin DTP connector, that means that the entire ECU, all the computer, will have boot, 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 boot. It'll be completely sealed and, well, prevent any sort of real major stress or strain on the wires. So that's gonna clean up really nice. The whole dash is gonna look amazing.
So I'm sure Rob explained to you guys what this badass thing is, but it needs a mount. So I made this nice little mount with C-locking nuts so that way they don't vibrate out or anything like that. Weld them to the back of this so you don't have to do the whole little back and forth thing. Car on? Oh no. Car off. Car on. Car off.
That is a pretty solid crimp. I'll follow it up again with a side crimp. Okay. So these are so unruly. Exactly. So I crimped this on a slight angle. It looks like it anyway. So that way this piece hugs right here and gives us a little bit more radius. Windshield's right there. And then I made sure I flipped it upside down because we have another one that's gonna come sit basically on top of it. And so that line needs to run on top of it. But if I had this one normal, it would bottom out and then these two would be hitting. If I swapped it, it'd be like this or this. That's not good. So having them like this and spacing it from the bottom prevents it from contacting down here, rubbing through. So this one is good. I made sure I gave the excess length right here so that way the connector can get in and out. So this is going to be the main ground from the battery to the starter. Go on this side so that the starter can kind of come in and out. That'll give me that little bit of slack I need. This is the old wire, so it's actually already terminated, but I'll fix that. Tang tool for coming in clutch here. It's out of the way of the spark plug area, but I'll my pedal. This sort of stuff, you are constantly double checking, triple checking, all this sort of stuff, because obviously you can burn the whole car down very quickly. So it's, like for example, one of the things that are on my mind is this line right here. Looks innocent enough, but that line right there is actually a high power ground as well, or high power current as well. So wear through this, you short shit out. So there's a lot of not good things that you can do on here. So I want to make sure that this line can be mounted somewhere safe and it's not rubbing on things. So my goal with all these lines is not letting them rub on stuff, like not just trusting the thick coating, is that they're suspended or they are held in places that don't contact and eventually seesaw their way through the sheathing. Now with this piece at an angle like that, I get the correct alignment of what I'm looking for. This, and it'll sit something like that. So then I'm gonna hold these two together so they maintain that angle. There you go. There we go. It's just the sheathing pulling back. Just to show you. There we are. So we have our main ground running from the battery to the block. That completes almost the last cable. This one's actually a very important cable. It's 2 gauge, 2/0, so 00. And this one runs from the underneath, well, above my knee, down to the starter area, so the block. And the reason this one matters is that when the car's starting, all of the electronics, the ignition and everything, the injectors, are going to go from the battery to the starter area, not the starter, and then go up here to the electronics. The other way that this one will get used is when the, no, it won't get used. I almost forgot. All of the fans, water pumps, and all that sort of stuff from the front of the car are actually going through this cable at all times too. So when the car's at full tilt, this will be transferring the power from the alternator, because the alternator's got the power line, right? But it's got to have a ground going up to the power, sending that out to the wiring harness. So yeah, this one at full tilt would be powering the whole front of the car. And with that one basically in, and again, I'm not tightening it in. I'm gonna make sure the switch is off, and then we'll go ahead and add this. And I'm purposely entrusting this. If this car blows up, it's because of the switch. Because if I can't trust it now, why should I trust it out there? So let's see. Now we have power and ground running to 2 wires going towards the front. Okay, so here's the real test. That's power. And then this is the ground. 29 millivolts. So we'll go ahead and switch this, and do not drop both of them together. Switching them to there. There we are. 13.3. That's super exciting. Go back to off. Back to millivolts. This is the first time in a year, first time in 2022, definitely in almost all of 2021, that this car has had power running more than just past the anti-gravity battery. I did not imagine that this thing would end up looking like this. That is one hell of a journey. That I ended up just adding up all of the material costs alone, and that was well over $13,000, including some of the tooling. So maybe $2,000 of that is tooling that we can reuse for the future rotors harnesses. And but yeah, you're talking about over $10,000 for all of these boots, the things that connect the boots, the glue, all of the DR25, all of the Tefsel wiring, including even the Autosport power wires, all the connectors, which is really the most expensive thing. All the Autosport connectors really add up quite a bit. It's done. As much as anything in this shop is, the car is fully functional right now. So you're getting kind of a brief glimpse because of we want to make sure this video is all about wiring. We're skipping all the other cool things that we've done as well, but I want you to know that, hey, the product that we're showing you this entire hour and a half actually works. The entire ECU and power distribution from here, all of the power distribution from this box, and I can tell you from experience, this ECU Masters and the Haltech Nexus R5 are an insanely lethal combination. This will power this car. This is good for about 240 to maybe 260 amps of power. If you have a 270 amp alternator, this is like the perfect combination to use everything that the alternator is capable of giving. We still have some work to do on finalizing, like some of these mounts, but the actual data being transmitted through those is done. You're gonna see more controls, like for example, I started doing all the CAN bus stuff for tire pressure sensors and EGTs. Mind you, these EGTs are gonna get rewired a totally different way. This is just a temporary test. But all of the Haltech's, kind of in-car, like plug-and-play stuff is all here as well. We'll rewire it so that way it's all mil-spec and whatnot, but all of this is done. The fuel system is done. The only thing I have left to do is really the stuff that's not my core harness. So we're talking the tail lights, which my brake lights work right now, but like reverse, pop-ups, all that sort of stuff, the wires are there. I'll show you. All I need to do is just simple DTM connector and finish that up. I want to take as much of this ugliness out, so I'll pull it back to here. So, with some diagnosing with the fan, which works phenomenal now, we can finally close this off. Water pump, again, same thing on this side, but all of that is contained within one single harness right there. And so very pleased with that. All of my harnesses for the engine, injectors, controlling the throttle body, pressure sensors, all that worked the first time when I did all that testing. So very, very pleased with all of this. Well, that's what it takes.